Welcome to Unit 3's Direct Instruction on Structure and Function. During the presentation, you should ask yourself the following questions. How does the non-living environment shape structures? How are these structures specialized for their function? How do these structures allow life to occur on Earth? During the presentation, you will begin to uncover the following objectives for this unit. You will develop an understanding of the importance of evolutionary theory as a unifying principle of biology. You will be able to describe the relationship between structure and function at the following levels: molecular, cellular, and organismal. By considering the relationship between structure and function at the molecular, cellular, and organismal levels, you should begin to develop a greater sense of how molecules, cells, and organisms are suited to the environment. Evolution is change in the genetic traits of a population over time. Changes in a population occur because individuals that inherit beneficial characteristics are more likely to survive. As a result, the frequency of individuals with the beneficial traits increases, and over time, these changes lead to changes that are so significant that the original population and the new population can no longer be interbred. Since beneficial traits lead to survival, it makes perfect sense that the structures of molecules, cells, and organisms enable them to function well on Earth. Now that we have an understanding of the overall connection between structure, function, and evolution, we will focus on how the relationship of structure and function manifest themselves at different levels of organization, starting with the molecular level. Since life is so dependent upon the presence of water, we will start with this molecule. A water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Since oxygen is electronegative, meaning that it strongly attracts electrons, it unevenly shares the electrons from the hydrogen atoms. As a result, the oxygen end of the molecule is more negative and the hydrogen end of the molecule is more positive. Molecules with a positive and negative end are called polar molecules. Therefore, water is a polar molecule. How does the environment shape the structure of water? Water changes its state depending upon temperature. Water is liquid between 0 and 100 degrees Celsius, 32 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and below 0 it is solid ice, and above it, it boils and becomes water vapor. Due to water's polarity, it has several properties that promote life on Earth: cohesiveness, adhesiveness, high specific heat, solid form is less dense than the liquid form, and it is an excellent solvent. The first property that promotes life on Earth is cohesion. Cohesiveness means that water molecules are attracted to one another, positive end of one molecule to the negative end of another molecule. Cohesiveness creates surface tension on liquid water. One little way that this helps living things is that it allows small organisms to walk on water. Another property of water that is beneficial to life on Earth is adhesion. Adhesion means that water molecules are attracted to other charged particles. Adhesion of water can be seen if you look at it closely through a glass or a cylinder. Water curves up along the edges of the glass. This is called capillary action. In plants, capillary action pulls water up through the veins from the roots to the stems and leaves against gravity. Another property of water caused by its polarity is that it has a high specific heat. This means that water must gain or lose a lot of heat in order to raise or lower its temperature. Here are a couple of reasons that this is beneficial to life on Earth. First, since we must maintain a relatively constant body temperature, the large volume of water in our bodies assists in regulating body temperature. Second, since our Earth has a large volume of liquid water and water vapor, global temperatures are much steadier. The absence of water is quite evident in deserts. The temperatures fluctuate much more from day to night. If the entire Earth was as dry as a desert, Earth would have an extremely hot equator and insanely freezing poles. It would be inhospitable. Continuing our explanation of how water helps life on Earth, let's consider its density. Unlike other solids, when water freezes, it actually is less dense than when it is liquid. This explains why ice floats on liquid water. Water owes this to hydrogen bonding, which keeps its molecules more distant when they crystallize. If ice were denser, water would freeze from bottom up, and whole ponds, lakes, and oceans would become solid blocks of ice. Luckily, water freezes from top to bottom, insulating liquid water and living things below. Finally, water's polarity causes it to be attracted to other charged substances, which it easily dissolves. Thankfully, our blood is high in water content, about 80%, and can easily dissolve oxygen and other materials needed by the body. Of course, other molecules besides water also have a relationship between structure and function. For example, carbohydrates and lipids, which include fats and oils, contain stored energy in their carbon bonds that is used in our bodies to do work. Their high energy bonds are broken down during cellular respiration. Proteins are also needed by us. Enzymes are proteins that are catalysts for chemical reactions. Proteins are folded into unique structures so that their active sites match the shape of the substrates that they change. Also, fundamental to life are the nucleic acids, including DNA. Its chains of nucleotides include nitrogenous bases, CGAT, cytosine, guanine, adenine, and thymine, which when combined in various sequences code for each and every living organism, past and present. Organisms that are more closely related have more DNA in common, so DNA is instrumental in understanding evolutionary relationships. Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids are the building blocks of life. With the presence of these molecules, the first cells could have easily formed. The first cells were very simple. It is believed that more complex cells came about when some cells ingested smaller cells. Over time, multicellular life forms, organisms with tissues, organisms, and organ systems evolved. Complex organisms contain many specialized cells that are perfectly fit for their jobs. The relationship between structure and function at the cellular level. Red blood cells are specialized for carrying oxygen. Mature red blood cells do not have nuclei and other organelles. Neurons are nerve cells. They have axons and dendrites that are interconnected with other neurons and by which electrochemical signals are carried in the nervous system. Muscles are composed of fiber-like cells that are specialized for contraction. These cells contain motor proteins that work together to contract the fibers. The cells contain a multitude of mitochondria. Can you guess why? Mitochondria are the organelles in which carbohydrates are converted into a form of energy that can do work by the process of cellular respiration. Since muscles do a lot of work, the abundance of mitochondria is quite appropriate, wouldn't you say? A final example of a cell that is perfectly designed for the function it serves is the sperm. A sperm is a reproductive cell with a flagellum which propels it to its destination, an egg. Flagella are organelles also found in many unicellular organisms, as well as flagellated life cycle stages of organisms, including ciliates, sponges, and many plants. We have touched upon the relationship between structure and function at the molecular and cellular levels. Now we will look at this relationship and some structures at the organismal level. One large evolutionary bump takes place from water to dry land. Mudskippers are fish that take the leap from water to land. They breathe with lungs as well as gills. They use their modified pectoral fins to move on land. These structures have helped them to bridge the gap between water and land. Plants also have a variety of adaptations for living in terrestrial environments. Roots anchor them to the ground and absorb water and nutrients from the soil, which are carried through a vascular system. Leaves of plants have a large surface area for catching sunlight, which powers photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide, also needed for photosynthesis, diffuses from the air into leaves through small pores called stomata. Another adaptation that has allowed plants to move from water to land is one that gets the sperm to the ovule without swimming in water. This adaptation is called pollination. Many flowering plants are pollinated by insects or other animals. These animals have structures that make them well suited for obtaining nectar from flowers they pollinate. Hummingbirds have especially long beaks and hover while feeding. A butterfly has a proboscis that unfurls when it is in use. While we have only looked at a few adaptations, there is actually a seemingly endless list of adaptations. I hope that as we uncovered the pairings of molecular, cellular, and organismal structures with their functions, you cannot help but notice how perfectly suited they are in the environment and their purpose. Alone, these are insufficient evidence for evolution, but when combined with anatomy, biogeography, direct observation of microevolution, fossil evidence, and molecular evidence, there is a solid case for evolution, which grows daily as even more proof accumulates. Please enrich your knowledge by exploring these topics. In order to check for your understanding, please answer the following questions at your own convenience. In this presentation, what connections did you find between the structures and functions of living things that help to unify molecules, cells, and organismal adaptations to evolutionary theory? Name a relationship between structure and function for each of the levels: molecular, cellular, and organismal. Give an example of how the non-living environment has shaped a structure. How is that particular structure specialized for its function? Does that particular structure benefit life on Earth? If so, how?